Okay, so this video serves as an overview of the DP Chemistry course, and it's the DP Chemistry course with first exams in 2025. My Apple Pen is not working right now, so we're going with the fingertip. Please forgive the bad handwriting. So what is chemistry? Well, chemistry is going to be the study of matter, and so that means we're going to be studying the particles that make up all matter and the interaction of those particles. And so that means we're going to be looking at the bonds that they form and the structures that they form, but also how those particles can change, or how the interactions and bonds between those particles can change through chemical reactions. And so the new chemistry course, I'm making this video in 2023, just as we are beginning the first cohort through this new syllabus for exams in 2025. And so when I say the new course has been really separated into two main themes. And so those two themes are structure and reactivity. And so when we look at structure, we're going to be looking at things like atoms, how they bond to form different molecules. And we're going to be looking at how there's different kinds of bonding, like covalent, ionic, and metallic bonding, and what structures and what properties that leads to. And so you've got that half of the course. And then we also have the half of the course that's going to look at different types of reactions and what happens in chemical reactions. So the involvement of energy in chemical reactions, the involvement of kinetics, how fast reactions happen, limiting reactants, stoichiometry, how much happens in chemical reactions, and then different types of chemical reactions. And they've categorized them here into proton transfer reactions, electron transfer reactions, and so forth. So those are the two main themes of the course, looking at the structure of matter and then looking at how matter changes through chemical reactions. Now, those are new topic numbers, and it's a new way of sort of thinking about the themes of the course. So if you want to compare that, these are the titles of the units that we will be covering, and this is in grades 11 and grades 12. So in grade 11, year one of the course, the idea is to cover the majority of the content. And so our units are here on the left-hand side, units 1 through 7. You'll see that largely these units focus on the structure topics, although not entirely. We will cover most of the structure topics in year one, but we will also look at some of the general reaction topics, such as stoichiometry and kinetics, as well as energetics. And we'll also look at a specific type of reaction, which are the redox reactions, the electron transfer reactions. In grade 12, we'll have a lot less content to cover. So we've got organic chemistry, which is the last of the structure topics. Also analytical chemistry for HL, which links very closely with analyzing organic structures. And then we have other units to cover, which are Unit 9, equilibrium, and Unit 10, if I fix my unit numbers here, acids and bases. And so those are different. We're going to be covering the majority of the sort of reaction topics, or at least half the reaction topics in grade 12. Now, it's a lot less content in grade 12, and that's because a big focus during grade 12 is, one, the individual investigation, which leads to what's called your internal assessment, which is a big lab report. And so that lab report will happen, really, it'll be going on all fall of your grade 12 year. So if this is still the first year of this course, so starting in August of 2023, then we're looking at beginning that in August 2024, submitting a draft in October 2024, and finalizing your IA lab report by December 2024. Now, the way that this is set up is that it also leaves us plenty of time for revision. So we've got trial exams or mock exams planned for the second year of the course in grade 12 in March. And so we should definitely finish the course in time to have revision time before the trial exams, then revision time after the trial exams, so reflecting on how the trial exams went, where our areas for growth are, what we need to work on, and then having that time to revise and practice before the actual IB exams in May of the second year. So higher level versus standard level. Higher level goes into greater depth for the topics that we do cover, but it will also cover more topics, and it often gets more mathematical with the topics. So it is a more challenging course in both sort of the scope of the course and also the depth of the course. Now, due to the combined nature of the class at this point, having HL and SL together, there are some challenges, and that's because most of the initial topics, the sort of foundation topics for the course, those topics are both SL and HL. And so it's really hard to start the chemistry course doing some SL lessons and then jumping to HL lessons. It's very hard to do the HL topics before we've done all the core foundational work. And so what that means is that although SL students are only scheduled for 2 lessons a cycle and HL are scheduled for 3 lessons per cycle, I'm going to need to ask the SL students from time to time, especially at the start of the course, to attend the 3rd cycle or the 3rd lesson each cycle in order to cover those initial foundation topics. And then what that will mean is that later in the course, the end of grade 11 and also throughout grade 12, the plan is that SL students will get additional lessons off. So not even going to those 2 lessons every cycle, with the ultimate goal being that over the 2-year course, the treatment is fair and that you have the correct number of lessons scheduled for chemistry across the 2 years. So the way I try to justify this is that actually what will happen is that early on you'll be spending extra time in chemistry, but then later on when you're busier, towards the end of grade 11 and also in grade 12, when you want that extra time, you actually will get extra lessons off because of the way we're structuring this course. So that's how we've been able to run the HL and SL class combined, and I'm open to discussing this with anyone. Okay, the IB exam with this with the syllabus change for exams in 2025, now there are 2 papers. There's really 3 papers, but they're calling it paper 1 and paper 2. You can, if you look at it, these papers are what's called the external assessment. These papers are your IB exam. And so this is what's happening in May of your 2nd year. Now you can see that for HL and SL, the length of the exams is slightly different. The HL exams are longer, but the breakdown of the exams and the weighting of the exams is the same. So paper 1 has 2 different components. It has a multiple choice test, and then it has a test that is based, has data-based questions. So you'll be given data and asked to make interpretations and answer questions about that data. So paper 1 will happen on one day, and then the paper 2, which is short answer and extended response questions, will happen on a different day. So you'll take your IB exam over 2 days, paper 1 on one day, paper 2 on the 2nd day. You will be allowed a calculator and a data booklet on all those papers. And so the IB exam makes up 80% of your IB score, the score that you will receive for your IB diploma. The other 20% comes from your internal assessment. An internal assessment is a scientific investigation. And so that means that for this class, the way you're going to earn that score is through one lab report that we score here internally, but that also we send out examples to be moderated by the IB to check on our scoring. So the chemistry internal assessment is an individual investigation. That means each student is carrying out their own investigation. While there is some opportunity for collaboration under this new syllabus, it is quite limited, and that can only happen with the explicit approval of the teacher. Each student is still required to have their own research question and to complete their own unique IA lab report. So when we get into year 2 and we're talking about planning the IA, we can talk more about the details of collaboration. But for now, don't think of it as a group assignment. Think of this as an individual assignment. Every student will plan and carry out their own investigation and write their own lab report, and that will earn 20% of their score. The IA criteria, there's 4 now. Each of them has the same weight. If you've been at an MYP school before, then this will be familiar to you. I'll try to break them down via the MYP criteria. So research design is essentially the same as criterion B. That's where you plan a lab, you outline your experimental variables and your method. Data analysis is kind of like criteria C1. So that was where you show your raw data, your observations, your processing, usually leading to a graph as the ultimate sort of summary of your data processing. And then conclusion is like criterion C2 in the MYP. And so this is where you're interpreting your data, trying to answer your research question. And then the fourth criteria is kind of like C3 and C4. And this is where you are evaluating a method, talking about the impacts of any weaknesses or strengths, and then talking about improvements. And so for now, that's really what you need to know about the DP chemistry course itself. We have, if I go back up, we have this content and skills to cover over 2 years. The majority of that will be covered in year 1 to allow time for the individual investigation, the IA, and also revision time for the trial exams and for the actual exams in May. Your weighting is 80% is based on an IB exam, which takes place over 2 days and is comprised of what we call 2 different papers. And 20% is based on your internal assessment, which is just a big lab report, which is similar to lab reports that you've written in the MYP. So I hope that gives you some sense of what you're going to cover in the DP and also how you will eventually earn your DP score.